G'day everyone, welcome to Question Time for our 5th week of the Life series. I'm Liam, this is Rob.
Hello.
All mic'd up. Great to have you back with us for our last week of the Life series.
Yeah, wonderful. With 5 weeks. It's been a long run, hasn't it?
Oh, passed in a flash.
Fast and flash.
But no, it's been really refreshing for me. Obviously this content isn't new to me, but every time I go back over the basic facts of the gospel, what is it that Jesus did? What does he offer? So week 1, what the satisfaction? Can we trust the Bible? What's the problem? The problem of sin, this relational break with God, and then looking at the cross and the significance of the cross, and then this final week, reflecting on how Jesus has renovated my life and that we actually can believe that the resurrection is the most logical explanation for the facts around the resurrection. I find it really encouraging. Even though it's familiar, it's no new information for me. It reminds me, wow, this faith that I have, it's not unreasonable. It's not foolish. It's actually a really reasonable faith. It's a logical, reasonable thing to believe, and it's really good news.
Yeah. And so here we are at week 5. Interesting. Before I saw this series, obviously I've seen it before, but before I saw the series, it surprised me that the resurrection was the focus, and having heard it kind of makes
what's
sense.
the catch week?
Yeah. I thought it was going to be a to-do list, maybe the first time I heard it, but it's really about that life-changing aspect of the resurrection that it all hinges on that,
Yeah, and that makes it reasonable to give over direction of your life, because that it's a reasonable catch. It is saying no. I have to deny self, take up my cross, and follow Jesus, and that's a big change. It's a big decision to make, to say no. I'll no longer set the course of my life, and I'll let Jesus do it. But when you put that side by side to the real historical resurrection of Jesus,
yes,
it doesn't seem like such a big deal. It's of course you'd entrust yourself
to
that
this person who's conquered death.
Yeah,
and I guess to launch in, and of course send your questions in as you've got them. You can send them now. We'll still answer them. But I guess a big question, given that it all hinged on the resurrection, is it really so open and shut? Can we really be sure that that's what happened?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's the things about anything that's happened in the past that you weren't in personal attendance at.
Yes,
you're at some point, you can't prove it. In a way, you can't go back and rewatch it and relive it, and even then, could you really even trust your own senses? So you can't actually prove something that's happened in the past. What you have to do for all these things, and I think that's where that video with the lawyer was really helpful, where he was explaining that this is when there's an accusation or an allegation or a claim that this is what happened. You can't prove, you can't rewind and go back and watch it. You've actually got to look at the evidence around that night. That's why they ask in the detective movies, where were you last Tuesday night? Because they're looking for the pieces of evidence around the moment when it happened. For example, I think the moon landing was really is a good one here, because there's still
what are you getting at? Yep. Okay.
A bunch of people around who say, it never happened. It was a conspiracy theory. Like, how do we know? How do you work out? Did they actually land on the moon or not? Did it happen or not? Now we can't prove that they landed on the moon, and that seems funny because you've got footage and you've got photos, but
yes,
footage can be faked. Photos can be doctored.
Okay, so you've got that conspiracy theory that says,
well, you've got two claims. You've got a claim, we landed on the moon, here's the proof. And then a conspiracy theory that says it was all a fake.
Did you do the air quotes for here's the proof on the real one?
It meant sort of proof because it's not real. Again, because I'm saying you can't have proof.
So you can't go back in time.
They've got alleged proof. They've got video footage. They've got photos. And what do? You say, okay, I'm neutral. It actually doesn't affect me personally right now. Whether I don't know either way. So what do? Well, you go and you look at the evidence. You talk to the specialists. I remember seeing something not that long ago where with the footage of the moon landing, the conspiracy theorists say, the lighting's wrong. The lighting's wrong. You can see there's a shadow. There wouldn't be a shadow on the moon, and this and that and the other. And they come back to the lighting specialists and they say, okay, well let's see if that lighting that was in that moon footage was able to be synthetically created with the technology they had at the time. So they went to the specialists, they looked into it. And it's like going to an archaeologist, big word, or a historian. You go to an expert in the field and say, well, what's most likely? And the experts say they just did not have the technology to fake this lighting. And you look at the facts, you look at the evidence around, you go, look, when was it claimed? Who saw it? Who was there? What happened? Bam, 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 bam. Look at it all. And then you say the most likely explanation, the most logical explanation is that it actually happened. And that's what we do with the resurrection. We can't rewind and go back and say, okay, the time is whatever it is. I'm going to wait here. The tomb's shut. I'm going to see what happens. We can't do that. So we look at those pieces of evidence. We look at and the big one, I think, is that how convinced the disciples were, and so many of the disciples were, that they had seen and interacted with the real risen Jesus. And there's people out there say, it was a mass hallucination. Well, medically, you can't have a mass hallucination. That's the thing. A hallucination's in your head. You can't have a mass hallucination.
You can't project it.
And people don't die for a lie. You don't go to your grave.
And that's definitely the thing I find most convincing. And so we get this great evidence, a lot like the week with the Bible, where we kind of saw all the evidence around that. And I guess the conclusion is the same. So it's not the evidence that stops people from believing, it's the impact. So what this means for my life. And because as much as we say it's not about what we do, but it does have a what we do change. So it's clear that it impacts the way people live. The claim, and certainly my experience, is that that life is fuller, life is more fulfilling, following Jesus. For the skeptic out there, convince them.
Yeah, so why?
How can you say you've got all these so often sacrifices, but it's worth it?
Yeah. Okay. Well, and then maybe this is a chance. This is my story, so this is what it meant for me. But I mentioned in the video that part of my conversion was finding a dead guy. I didn't give the details of that in the life series, but up to that point, my goal in life was to be a farmer. Our family farm had been sold, so I thought I'll be a farm manager.
It's good to keep the bar low, isn't it?
Well, it's a pretty high aspiration, especially when you don't have a farm. But I wanted to breed the best cattle in the world, and as I look back, I really wanted to make a difference. I've always been into breeding animals, whether it was chickens or cattle. I wanted to improve the breed. It wasn't good enough just to have backyard chooks. I wanted to have purebred chooks and improve them. And when I look at that, it was because I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to improve something. And one of the things that really struck me when I found that dead guy, I can remember sitting at the base of Ben Nevis in Scotland, having just found a dead guy, waiting to give the report to the policeman, and thinking, you know what, even if I live to 90 and breed the best shorthorn cattle in Australia, in the world, 10 years after I'm dead, they'll all be dead. No one will remember. It won't have made any difference. And that struck me. The only way I can have something eternal, something that lasts, that I can make a difference that lasts, is by investing in people's eternal future. Now, that's not to say I don't still love breeding out. I've still got sheep. I still
sure do.
have had chooks and stuff, but that's not where I seek my fulfillment. That's not where I seek to make my big difference, because I've realised that in Jesus, by following Jesus and investing in, and he calls all Christians, everyone who follows him, to be part of sharing this great news with others. That's something that will last forever.
Yeah.
So in lots of ways, life is fuller. It's busier. There's in some ways more pressures sometimes, but it's far more fulfilling because I'm invested in something that will last forever, in something that really matters. And so, huge fulfillment in life in terms of purpose. I don't have to wonder whether what I'm giving my life to it will make a difference or not.
Yeah.
And I think that's not just because I'm a minister and work in a church. For Christians who work a secular job, who don't work for the church, they've got the same purpose and fulfillment in as they seek to share with their friends and really care for people and ultimately share this good news of Jesus. They're involved just as much as I am.
It's a little of what we saw in week 1, isn't it? That we look for satisfaction in a whole bunch of different ways, but it doesn't deliver. So for the person who's seeking it in their job, we know that you try, but you never get there. You get the promotion, but then you go,
or even if you become the top business in the country, whatever. Well, you're going to die. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's gonna.
And so following Jesus means you've got this thing that transcends that will never fail ultimately.
Yeah. So Jesus talks about that in not putting our hope in earthly treasures that rust and fade, and they've been talking about they've found Cleopatra's tomb. The pharaohs tried to take their earthly treasures with them, and they couldn't. They're rotting in the dirt. But this is something that lasts, that goes into eternity with you. Should you put your hope in Jesus and live your life, directed towards Him? It's a great purpose and hope.
Yeah. Well, there you go. It's pretty quiet in terms of questions this week, and so we might round it off there. But with the end of life, so the end of our weekly Q&A, do you want to just give us a quick sneak peek of what's next in terms of Lake Church?
So a couple of things. We're kicking off Christianity Explored this next week. So if you've done life and you think, I would really like to look at more of this, you might still have questions about Jesus. We're running Christianity Explored in a bunch of different formats. Over Zoom, if you're not local or you can't get there in person, a couple of small groups as well.
And you can get the contact info and how to sign up and all that stuff from the live video.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all there. So text or email us and we'll hook you up with one of those groups. And that's just, I think we run it over 7 weeks in the Gospel of Mark. So we actually haven't opened the Bible much in life. I've done a lot of talking and explaining, but this is a chance to open the Bible, God's words to us, and meet Jesus.
Check out what it says, yeah.
And so I really want to endorse that for you. So dig into the Christian.
And there's a few different courses running, so different times, different places.
So we'd love to make that work. So
chances are there's something that suits.
Yeah. And then as well as that, we're having finished life, we're jumping back into John's Gospel. So at church we preach through books of the Bible, just one chunk at a time, like a chapter at a time, just like you'd read a story. You're not going to skip chapters. That wouldn't make sense. We don't. We just work through them. We're up to chapter 9, so we're going to jump back into the John's account of Jesus' life in chapter 9 and keep stepping through for the next few weeks through to John chapter 12. So come join us for church. Jump on the website in the next little while. There's going to be info there about what's going on for church. We've still got to be COVID safe, so there's going to be we've got to be a bit careful about numbers and all that sort of stuff, but we have space. We'd love you to come along and join us for church, or Church Online will still be going out, not on Sunday morning now. We're actually going to be streaming it live at 4 p.m. on Sundays on YouTube now, not on Facebook.
There is a scary thing to get our heads around, but we've been doing some practices. We think we've got it good to go for this coming Sunday.
So I'll be preaching to a live audience at church, and that will stream
on YouTube Live, but we'll put a link up on Facebook as well.
So you can
you'll be able to jump on and, of course, watch it later as well.
Yeah. We'd love to see you there.
Yeah. So we'll wrap up there. For the last week, Liam's going to tell a joke while I go and turn it off.
That's terrible timing because I don't know very many jokes, but I will see you next week, hopefully, in person.